So I just sent out my final invoice of the year and I was actually able to take a look at how much I made throughout 2024 freelancing. So let's talk about it. Hey everyone, welcome back. Or if you're new here, hi, my name is Mark and I'm a UX and product designer, a digital marketer, and someone who loves creating content about personal development, productivity, and all things design. So in this video, I'm gonna break down exactly how much I made as a freelance UX designer and digital marketer, and I'm gonna try and be as transparent as possible. But just keep in mind that I did only start as of June of this year, so I haven't been doing it for too long, or at least just half a year. So we'll just see what it looks like. So let's start by first giving you guys a little bit of context into my current situation, or at least beginning of 2024. In one of my previous videos, I talked about wanting to become a digital nomad. And so a lot of that is centered around the reason of why I started my own business. And something that really pushed me towards my goal was when I visited Spain earlier this year in April. And I said, hey, I actually could see myself moving here. And I could actually see myself making that leap to becoming a digital nomad sooner than I thought I would. So in order to do that, what are the logistics? One of the logistics is to qualify for the digital nomad visa. And in order to do that, I need to make a certain amount of money outside of my W-2, which means just throughout my own means, like my own business, freelancing, things like that. So that told me that, hey, I have to start a business and I have to start generating income outside of my full-time job and get this show on the road. So where that led me was to try and figure out a business that I could start. And the most obvious answer at the time was just freelancing what I already do. So I've been working full-time as a UX designer for about 2 years now. And before that, I actually worked at an advertising agency for about 2 years as well as a senior strategist. So I would say I have a decent amount of experience in advertising and digital marketing, and then also within UX design. And the funny thing is that they actually go hand in hand and have a lot of correlating aspects. So to me, it just made sense to kind of merge them and offer someone a advertising and UX design service just in one. And it also just made so much sense because trying to find someone who does digital marketing and web development or just any UX design, anything in that realm, is actually very difficult. And that's like just two very separate positions, two positions that can very much earn 6 figures doing just that. So merging them into one and offering it at a lower value just made so much more sense. So at the very beginning, I was offering a lot of hourly rates and I was able to secure some long-term clients because of an hourly rate. And then I also started to try and test project rates. So just saying, hey, this is how much the project's going to cost. I'm going to do it at this much. At the very beginning, you have to put a deposit down, and then I'm going to charge you this much once the project is over. So I was just trying different pricing methods to see which one I prefer. And essentially, I chose one option that I think I like the best. And I think most people would probably agree with this, but it ends up being the project rates and then just a monthly rate. Working hourly and just getting very meticulous about tracking your hours doesn't really end up working well unless you're using a platform like Upwork or something that actually tracks and logs your hours, but it's actually very hard to kind of correlate it to a certain amount. I don't know, it all just depends and it gets really convoluted when it comes to hourly rates. I just think project rates and monthly rates is just easier and just so much more manageable on our side administrative, and also it gives like the client a very good expectation of what they're going to spend budget-wise. So all around, I just think it works better, and that's something I prefer. All right, so moving on, let's really talk about the market conditions and like what that looks like for freelance people. I've actually found that there's a lot of freelance work out there because no one actually wants to hire a full-time employee. They might have a few projects that a UX designer can handle, but paying someone on a W-2 salary and then also saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna give you benefits and all of that, isn't profitable for the business. So rather, instead of just saying, hey, let me hire someone full time, I'm just gonna contract someone out for a period of time. And after that work is done, we will see you later. Maybe reach out to you in the future if more work needs to be done. So it's actually more profitable for small to medium businesses to get a freelancer. And because of that, there's so much work out there for freelancers like me. Okay, so as of June of 2024 up until now, I have made a total of $18,450, which averages out to $3,075 per month. So let's actually reflect on that, because if you compare it to the salary of someone who's doing the same type of work full time, it doesn't really seem like much. So for example, I'm looking at the average salary of a UX designer, which in the United States is between $105,000 to $116,000 per year. which is a lot of money. And if we take the yearly salary of how much I ended up making freelancing in 2024, it ends up being around $3,700. Very low compared to the yearly average. But then when we consider a lot of other factors, like me not committing all of my time to freelancing, me balancing a full-time job, things like that, it tends to kind of make sense, especially when you're just beginning your freelancing journey. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's talk about how much I made per platform and kind of how I found these clients. So I was able to actually find clients through a few different ways, and let's break down how much I earned by those different ways of me getting clients. One of those is through social media, another one is through networking, and the last category is through platforms such as Contra and Upwork. So to break it down, through social media, which was a client that actually found me from me posting reels and all of the content that I have on there, I was offered a project which I took and completed for $1,000. Just that. From networking, which is just me asking friends or friends of friends if they need help or a website or any services that I offer, or just meeting people out in public who could also benefit from it. This actually ended up finding me the biggest income because I was actually able to find recurring clients through this way, but I ended up earning $14,300 from this method. And then lastly, which you would think earns the most and which I hope I can earn the most in the future, would be through platforms. And in platforms, I actually earned $3,150 this year. So the most profitable channel or method for me of clientele was actually through networking and just talking to friends of friends, which honestly goes to show how important networking is. Keep in mind that I do have business expenses and not all of this money is going into profits. I just gave you a gross amount of how much I made throughout the year. Gross, actually, not like disgusting, like that's a large amount, just the gross amount that I made. Now let's talk about some lessons that I learned and some takeaways that hopefully could be useful to you after watching this video. All right, so the first thing that I want to talk about is pricing adjustments. I learned very quickly, and I talked a little bit about this at the beginning of the video, at how I should make pricing adjustments with new clientele. For one, moving away from hourly. Doing hourly is just really difficult and honestly just doesn't really work the best for a lot of freelancers out there. It is so much better to just have a project budget and like a scope in mind. So anything that's outside of that scope will cost more. And those things you can charge hourly for, it's just more of a nuisance. So for me, a big takeaway is that if possible, charge per project or at a monthly recurring rate. And if you can, offer packages because people love to get a general idea of what their project might cost, and packages are a great way of saying, this is all inclusive of one price. Moving on to client selection, and this is actually one of the most difficult things. I think a lot of freelancers really hate working with clients. It's really hit or miss finding the right client. And so, yeah, let's talk about clients that pay on time, respect boundaries, and align with your design style, because those are really hard to find. In my experience working with more medium-sized businesses, it's actually a lot easier to get paid on time because it just gets routed through their accounting team. But working with smaller businesses or just individuals tend to actually get some delays in payments, issues with the workflow, so many issues that sometimes it might not seem worth it. Once again, it is very dependent on the client, but that just tends to be the pattern that I've seen. Another lesson that I've learned with client selection is to find someone who is actually prepared and serious about their product. And what I mean by that is that I kind of had to help guide them to creating their business when really I was only there to help them build a website. So those people are actually looking for someone to handhold them in building their idea that they have in their mind, as opposed to working on the business as a collaborative process. And the last issue that I've had with client selection is them trusting in your ability to do work. I've had clients in the past where they'll ask so many questions where it just kind of seems as though they're questioning your knowledge or testing you to see if you really know what you're doing, but it ends up just kind of like being almost slightly disrespectful. And that can sometimes just lead to issues. Moving on to another category, I want to talk a little bit about time management and work-life balance, which I've realized is so much more difficult when you're freelancing. Moving from a typical 9 to 5, in your head, you understand that you're going to be working between those hours, and every day it's just going to be within those hours. Unless you're, working from a very demanding job and they're asking you to work overtime, all these things, how that is. But when it comes to freelancing, that is 24/7. When you start your own business, you don't stop at any point in time. The luxury of it is that you're able to at least pick where you work and when you work, but it is constant. So because I'm also working a full-time job from that typical 9 to 5, and then also working that 24/7, whenever I can get the work done, I tend to realize that my work-life balance kind of struggles a little bit. And that really just depends on the projects and how much I'm taking on at one time. And that has been a very large struggle for me. Obviously, it's because I'm balancing two very large things at once, and hopefully at some point I can make one of them the more prevalent, source of income, my only time commitment, but it still will be 24/7, especially if I want to make more money and scale the business. Just something to keep in mind for those of you who want to balance freelancing and also doing their full-time job. It is a long time commitment and you will be putting in a lot of hours at the very beginning, but it will pay off once you get all your things established, you're making enough money to move over and transition into that phase. Some things that have helped me is setting certain days where it's no work, not doing any work at all, and you are just spending time to relax and just kind of like bed rot, hang out with friends, or just really do whatever for you is relaxing. Another thing that I found super helpful is just creating a productivity structure and just really time blocking your calendar to make sure that you're getting all the things that you need to get done. One thing that is very detrimental and will lead to burnout is if you are just taking it day by day and saying, oh, this day I might be able to work on this, or hopefully I can finish this by the end of the day. That is very unpredictable because you don't know what you might have to work on at your full-time job that may actually lead you to working overtime, and then the amount of mental energy that you have to work on a freelance project might not even be there. Now let's talk a little bit about skill development, because there's so many things that I did not have before I started freelancing. If you're shying away from freelancing or offering certain services because you don't know how to do some small task or work on some small platform, things like that, you're missing out, because you really can figure it out really easily, especially when it's for a real client, because you will learn how to do it. You have no other option. For example, at my advertising agency, I was really used to just making the strategies on, Excel documents, Word documents, and using all these different tools to say, hey, this is what we need to do to execute on this plan, but not actually building it out on the platforms that we were using. So when it came to me actually building it out, I was so lost, I didn't know what to do, but I learned. I figured it out. I just watched a ton of YouTube videos and I learned by doing, especially when you're getting paid. It just makes it so much easier. And the great thing about this is that as you're learning, it's going to become easier for new clients. And then you also become a lot more confident in your ability to deliver certain, projects at a higher rate so you can get paid more and do it a lot faster. Lastly, one category that I want to talk about is market trends and tools and things like that. I think nowadays it is really easy to do a lot of freelancing because there's so many AI tools that make a lot of your job easier, and there's so many other things that you can do as well. For example, you can whitelist a lot of your work in collaboration with a lot of other freelancers, and you can also just outsource things in general. And then there's also so many AI tools that can really help you with a wide spectrum of things, such as ChatGPT, Midjourney, and Firefly. Just so many tools that I use on the day-to-day that really make it helpful. All right, so moving on, some advice that I would have for aspiring freelancers is to just try and get your first client. That is really it. The best way that I would recommend doing that is to start off by just networking. Text your friend and ask them, hey, do you need a website? If not, do you know someone that would? Do that with a lot of people in your contact list. It might seem annoying, but you actually will come across someone who's like, hey, I actually am thinking about doing something. I actually do need my portfolio redesigned, or I have a friend who's starting a company or starting something and they need a website. That literally has happened to me on multiple occasions. Once you kind of get into the workflow of working with your first client, you actually start to also understand a lot of the administrative things that you need to get set up for your business to thrive, and you kind of create your own workflow that is just best suited for you. And from there, you can start to learn how to collect other clients and what avenues are best for finding those people. So whether that is platforms, networking, social media, at least those avenues for me were profitable. those might be for you as well, and some more than others. Some other pieces of advice are just some things that I've talked about already in the video, such as going and learning through YouTube videos and just by doing. I would also stress the importance of tracking your finances and keeping track of all of the expenses that you're taking out of your business. That is very much the administrative side and just doing taxes at the end of the year. I think it's really important to make sure you know how much you're spending on your business as opposed to how much you're making, because you don't want to pay a ton in taxes later on. Another thing would be to have a plan and have a professional website that showcases your portfolio. And if you don't have a really good portfolio, start doing a few projects for free and see how that helps you build it out. Another tip for people who are trying to make more money on platforms such as Contra or Upwork is to look at the top performers for whatever you're trying to freelance in on those platforms. Once you take a look at their profiles, you'll be able to see, some of their intros, some of the projects that they worked on, and then their portfolios. You can base your portfolio and how you build your profile on that platform off of some of these top performers, and you're able to kind of get a general idea of what makes more of a successful profile, which will help you get more clients. One thing that I know is super tedious and difficult is finding a workflow that works for you and finding all the tools and resources that help you with things such as project management, time tracking, or invoicing. So I'm actually going to throw a free resource in the description below that just shows you guys my workflow and also lists out all of the tools and resources that I'm using in my current workflow that helps me with all of my clients. Feel free to take a look at that, and if it's helpful, make sure you give some thanks by liking the video or subscribing. Everyone's journey in freelancing is gonna look completely different. The way that you start, the way that you are working today, and the way that you will continue working and scale your business is completely different from the next person, so I wouldn't compare your journey to mine, and I wouldn't compare my journey to anyone else that you know as well. Instead, just be proud of where you are, proud of how you started, and where you want to be. That's what I'm doing, because I'm very happy with how much I was able to make this year on the side of my full-time job. That's all just extra income and brings me closer to my goal of becoming a freelance digital nomad. Other than that, I really appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to give it a like and subscribe just so you can follow me on my freelancing, personal growth, and digital nomad journey. Other than that, I will see you guys in the next video.